All right, welcome back again. So, so far we've covered quite a lot. What I want to cover next is going to be our resources on the cPanel. Now, it's really it gets a little technical, but I'm just gonna give it to you basically so you understand what you need to be doing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get to the cPanel. We've done this about 1,000 times, so we're gonna go to the nine little squares, or I mean nine little circles, which I've probably said nine little squares 1,000 times. My hosting, and one quick note: you can't do this type troubleshooting on the managed WordPress. What I'm about to show you, so we're not gonna really talk about it per se. The WordPress is really simple. I'll run through the errors for a WordPress site for you. So it's really simple there. But cPanel, we do have a little bit of stuff going on in the back end that can kind of help you with your website. So let's go ahead. Three little dots, settings. All right, we're gonna pass go. All right, so we're gonna stay on this page right here, and we're gonna go through some a few settings here. So first and foremost, the settings you want to be looking at here is our general information. Like I said, over here you can kind of explore this stuff, but there's a lot, so most of it is going to be irrelevant for you. But over here we have our general information, which has your user, the primary domain, your IP address, which your home directory is, the last IP address that logged in, which I'm on behind a VPN, so that's not a good IP address, your theme, and then server information. You will not really need any of that if you're taking this course, but anybody who does can just take a look at that and see. And here we go, statistics. So this is the fun part. So this tells you everything that you're using. So you have 25 databases. I'm using one. File usage, like I said before in one of the previous videos, 250,000. I have 740. Your disk usage is infinite, so you don't really have to worry about that. Same thing here, bandwidth. All of this stuff is infinite, even though it will give you numbers. It's all infinite, so you don't have to deal with that. Email accounts, I don't recommend cPanel email, so I'm not going to get into that. Autoresponders, anything that has to do with cPanel email, I'm not going to really recommend. What I'm mostly focused here, because I work in hosting, is our CPU usage, our entry process, our physical memory usage, INOs, and then IOPS, and number of processes. Now, this stuff is really technical, but what you're really looking for here is red. So say for instance your website goes down for whatever reason, you get a 503 error, and you open this up and you come over here and you see there's red here. That will essentially mean that you have hit some resource in some way. So CPU, this server only has one. If you're at 100%, that means you used all the CPU. Easy answer: upgrade the server for more CPU or reduce the server load by removing stuff from the server. But it's very complicated in that instance. Entry process, same thing. Physical memory, you have 512 megabytes, like it says here. If you hit this, you either buy more or you find a way to reduce the amount of memory that it's using. Now, INOs is going to be more, because this one you can kind of ignore. Entry processes you can kind of ignore. You won't be really hitting red on those that often. INOs is your database, basically the connection that's going on with the database. If this hits above this 10 megabytes per second, then we're in trouble. Which the chances of it doing it is not very high unless you're using heavy WordPress sites. But if it goes above that, you're in trouble, because the only way to get more of this is to upgrade into your business hosting environments and stuff like that to remove that bottleneck. So if any of these show up in the red, you're likely looking at an upgrade or some type of optimization on the website. Malware can also cause them to go up. So number of processes, entry processes, all of this stuff could be affected by malware. So just as a quick note, if you come in and you see the red stuff here, it's either one, you're using more resources than you're supposed to, so the site is probably too big, The answer to that is to reduce the size of the site or increase the size of the server by paying dollar bills. If you come in here and all of this stuff is in red, and let's say this just randomly happened, there's a good chance you may have malware, because it will also do it. At that point, you should probably request a security scan. You do have to pay for them if you're not using like WordFence or something like that. You do have to pay for them, and WordFence only works on WordPress to clean up any additional processes or anything like that. That would likely save you money on upgrading your server, but those plans are significantly expensive. And I'll go through securing the server at a later time. This is just going to be a quick overview of just the basics as far as figuring out what's going on with the server. So let's say, for instance, you come in here and you see all of this red stuff. Now, what we want to do is we want to find out why. So we want to go and find the metrics tab. Under the metrics tab, we have our CPU and concurrent usage and resource usage. Either one of these will work. So we'll click on resource usage and it'll give us a current snapshot. If for some reason, let's say you come in here, there will be a warning that says you used up all of your resources. So it'll say you use more INOs, or you use too much RAM, or your CPU is matched. If it says anything like that, then you can go to details and it'll explain it to you. Right now, I'm just going to do current usage. You can see where I've been installing WordPress, shows up here in this little baby dot. And then what we're going to do is time frame, because whenever you're troubleshooting something, you want to at least get a couple of weeks in. I know nothing's going to happen because I haven't been doing anything on the server. This is just like a little dev server that I put stuff on when I'm testing it. So you can run a timeline, and what it'll do is show you your usage over time, which is excellent for telling if you've been hitting resources or you're getting spiked or something along those lines. So this is a short one. This is a very short one because resources are pretty cut and dry. If you're in the red, you need to upgrade or fix your content and check for malware. Those are your most important things. So that is usually the only time you will need to be upgrading a server, unless like I said, you're hitting the 250,000 limit. But that would also show up in red. So if you see red means you're hitting resources at some point. Now, one thing I'll tell you, it doesn't really do you any good to call into support and ask them to lower your resources, because we can't remove your content, and we can only make an educated guess as to what could be causing it. Now, if you have malware, we can request and this is generally how I handle these type of calls. Is if you call in and you're getting a 503 on the website, this is the first place I come. I take a look at your resources. Your resources are in the red or have hit the red. Then I'm going to recommend the malware scan. I'll go in and take a look myself if you don't have a security scan on there. And then from that point, I would recommend I can take a look at your history. And if you have really good history and this is a spike, malware is going to be my first instinct. If you've been hitting the whole time, I'm going to recommend some sort of optimization, which you can do on your own, or a server upgrade if it's bad enough. If it's a server upgrade, obviously you have to pay for it, but this isn't a course on paying for servers. This is more of a quick troubleshoot guide. If you come in here and you see red or your website crashes with a 503 error. So that is really it for this particular scenario. As you can see, there are a whole ton of other stuff in here that you can dive into and poke at. The average user will not be using any of this stuff, especially if you're just uploading files. You're mostly going to be concerned with this over here, the CPU usage, and your add-on domains, subdomains, and your file manager. And just a quick tip for you as well. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on this, but say for instance you have memory problems. Most common memory problems is you've hit upload limits. We want to come to our cPanel, PHP, select PHP version, and we have PHP modules here. Now we're going to come back to this in a second, we're going to go beside extensions and go to options. And under options, we can easily change our max upload size. We can easily change our execution, our memory limits. We can go through all of this stuff and change it with no problems at all. So this is easy day for you. Pop in here, click this button. I won't go through the details. In most cases, whatever you're trying to change will tell you what it needs. Like if WordPress is like, oh, you only have 32 megabytes of upload, well, you can increase it to a gig or something like that. Or your memory's too low, it's taking too long to execute something, add a 0, so on and so forth. Easy day. Let's go back over to extensions. Extensions are a little bit more advanced. You won't need to be in here unless your WordPress gives you some sort of error that an extension needs to be activated. At that point, you would come in and you would find out which extension needs to be activated, and you put a check mark in it. One thing to explain to you is all extensions don't exist on all versions of PHP. So every version of PHP has its own versions of extensions. So 7.4 extensions may not be on 8.0 and may not be on 8.1, and that in some cases explain why your website would break if you went from 5.6 to 7.4, but your website requires an extension that only exists on 5.6. So I'm actually going to call it on this one. Like I said, this was a pretty cut and dry, straightforward one as far as getting your website into the and getting your website troubleshot in case you run into an issue where you run out of resources. The rest of this stuff is advanced or stuff that you won't be dealing with. All right, so you guys have a good day, and in the next version I will go through a little bit of the errors that you may encounter on both WordPress as well as the cPanel, and then that would be it for that particular part of this tutorial that I'm putting together. Thank you.